saying Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It is Allah who's brought us here. However, many of us are here today. The importance is that the message of Ramadan is one of discipline and it is one of reward. As we all know, I am not an alima. To give you a little bit of background on myself, thank you so much to Nadia. I'm just wondering where she's gone. There she is. Jazakallah so much for the introduction. So I am a life coach and a complementary health practitioner. So I am a therapist. I do counseling, life coaching. I do quantum resonance analysis to check on everybody's health, basically. And then I have some health products as well, which assist in various ailments. But today our focus is on Ramadan. And I wanted to kind of help give us the tools with which to support the body and the mind. Now, our mind really only functions as well as our body is running. So we have to underpin and support our body through this time. What happens during Ramadan is we go through that initial period where it's really, really tough and our body is in shock. Our body is saying, what are you doing? Like, what did I do to you? And then slowly, we kind of get into it. And in that time when we are adjusting, it can be really, really difficult to keep our wits about us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Ramadan from a perspective of feast or fasting. The next point will be on negativity, some of its causes and some of the solutions. I'm going to touch on pacing ourselves and how to avoid the hangry roller coaster. I'm going to talk about neurogenesis of the brain and cardiac rejuvenation, as well as the process of autophagy. Ooh, these big words. I promise you it's all going to make sense to you, and I will keep it accessible because we're all in this together. And inshallah, if we go to the next step, supplementing for gut health, we will be able to really support the body and the mind so that we can have the best Ramadan, inshallah, to date. And I will be including a little bit of supplementation and a little bit of healthy herbs for Ramadan. I have a passion for herbs. I started working with herbs from the age of 9 years old. I had my first herb garden. My grandmother taught me quite a lot about natural healing because she and her mother, my great-grandmother, used to help people during the World War where there was no access to medicine. So it was all about herbs and it was all about natural things. And it's been a passion of mine all along. So as we begin, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, we say, what is Ramadan? So Ramadan, the word in Arabic comes from, as you may well know, ramad, meaning scorching heat or dryness. So dryness, if you imagine a desert, we're literally going to be walking through this desert, but we're walking in direction of an oasis, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he has to be the oasis at this time. It's a difficult time. We can get so involved in preparation that we lose sight of what the Ramadan is actually about. And it becomes about fasting and then feasting in the night. And, you know, us as women, as mothers, as wives, caregivers, we spend so much time in the kitchen that can be really frustrating. I want to invite you all as I go along, please pop your questions on there if you have them. If you need clarity, pop them on there. I will park them. I will see which ones I can answer as we go. And at the very end, we will do a little bit of a Q&A. So it is, it can take us away. Sometimes our preparation can take us away from the ibadah because we're literally spending too much time in the kitchen many times. So we're rushing to get things done on time. And so sometimes we sacrifice a lot of what we need to be doing in terms of our ibadah and even our peace of mind because we are kind of gearing the family up. And that can actually make us feel quite negative. I would just ask you to maybe turn your cameras off. Then we've got, if we consider that we're rushing to meet deadlines for iftar, people are tired and we've spent the day cleaning the house, doing ibadah, managing the home, managing the kids. And it can feel almost like everybody else gets to be tired. Everybody else gets to feel the impact of Ramadan. But we, however, can't feel that. We kind of have to just keep going. And if you add to that the need to maybe go to work as well and come back and do things on time. It can be very overwhelming. If you add then to that the fact that many of us suffer from anxiety or depression, I'm going to talk a little bit about the physiological things that are going on in our body that can actually make that anxiety or that depression a lot worse during initial stages of Ramadan, and how we can support it. So we can have feelings of being taken for granted. We can feel unable to cope because things are all on our shoulders, right? And the thing about Ramadan is if we allow everything to clutter our mind and we allow things in our home to become cluttered, it's impossible to actually give ourselves what we need during this time of Ramadan, which is contemplation and drawing near to Allah. Yet Ramadan calls us to discipline. It calls us to self-control. And discipline isn't an attitude, it's a habit. It's a habit. And just like fasting is a habit, that first week is hard and then it gets easy. And by the time Ramadan is coming to an end, we start thinking, oh my gosh, I wish it would stay a bit longer, because now it's become that familiar friend that we are used to. And Ramadan is an invitation for us to change, not just in ibadah, but in our own selves. So all these feelings of anxiety, all these feelings of stress and rushing around can be really overwhelming, and we need to put them somewhere. It's like if you've got things lying around, you've got to put them somewhere. Otherwise, energy doesn't flow through your house because there's all this clutter everywhere. So the same with our minds. If our mind is cluttered, energy, our thoughts, our spiritual self can't flow. So how do we get kind of on top of things? Okay, we can have a tendency to have this all or nothing. It's like I'm going to do everything, otherwise I can't do anything. That feeling. And sometimes our gents do that. It's like, I can't do anything. You must do everything when it comes to the planning and the preparation. And it can be very, very exhausting. And we can overgeneralize. Again, all these women are going through this. All these men are doing nothing. And that's not necessarily the case. But these are the kinds of negative thoughts that can come to us. Magnification. So we make a big thing out of small issues. They kind of run away with us. And then the last thing, of course, is emotional reasoning. Just because we feel negative, just because we're feeling anxious, doesn't mean that the sky has fallen. And so to just kind of keep that perspective. But how? How do we do that? I'm reminded of the one story of the king's daughter who everywhere, everything she did, she said, Bismillah, 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 Bismillah. And then the king's new wife didn't like the daughter, and so set her up for a trap, and she kept the king's ring. But because she kept saying Bismillah, 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 and the woman had taken the king's ring and thrown the ring in the river, somehow by hook, by crook, that fish got caught, got sent into the king's palace, and the daughter who was in the kitchen cut open the fish, and there was the ring. So just because we feel that everything is lost does not mean that it is. Just because we feel overwhelmed, our feelings are valid, doesn't mean that it is. And we need to develop that presence of mind, that mindfulness, so that Bismillah, Bismillah, Bismillah in everything we are doing. Understanding that everything that we do during the month of Ramadan has a purpose. And the purpose is for the pleasure of Allah, to draw nearer to Allah, to spend more of our energy connecting to Allah. Because by doing that, we then are blessed in return. And inshallah, we do not just fast for the sake of fasting. Reminded again of a hadith that says something about how poor the people are, that they go through all of Ramadan and all they felt is hungry. All they got out of it was hunger. So they come out poorer than the poor. So the mindfulness is important, to stop ourselves when we begin to ruminate, to stop ourselves when we begin to speak negatively. How do we do that? By developing an awareness. How do we develop an awareness? By staying mindful in everything, Bismillah. In everything, being mindful of the moment. When we are doing something, we focus on that particular thing. We focus on perhaps a good tip, something that I do every Ramadan is I have a journal. And in that journal, I will write down things that inspire me, things that kind of come to mind, perhaps a Quranic verse or ayah that I read that really spoke to me. I'll write them down because often I feel that during Ramadan, this is my experience, this is how I receive what I call messages or indications or divine guidance, whatever you want to call it, in terms of how I should improve my life, how I should better lead my life. And journaling is one way to bring that mindfulness in, because you kind of write down what you went through the day, and it can be hard because you can be really tired, and the last thing you want to do is now write a journal. But after you've eaten and you spend some time and you've done your Isha and you are now ready to relax for a little while, this is when we can put pen to paper and start to write things down and start to look for the messages that came to us in the day through various sources. And this helps us to stop overthinking, and it helps us to shift focus. But as I said, this has to be underpinned by our physiological well-being. So let's look a little bit at what happens to us during Ramadan, during the process of fasting. What happens? Immediately the body, which normally is releasing feel-good hormones like serotonin and melatonin, it's keeping us awake. The body's like, what is going on? What did I do to you? What have I done? And it starts to release a whole lot of other chemicals to protect itself from the negative effects associated to abstaining from eating. It starts to produce chemicals that are not serotonin, and the one that we really need in order to not get that hangry feeling is serotonin. Serotonin is a feel-good hormone. We cannot get serotonin from foodstuffs, but we can have the food that we eat transform into serotonin if we eat the right types of foods. So I'm going to touch a little bit on the foods that produce serotonin. The foods that produce serotonin are foods that are high in something, an amino acid called tryptophan. Tryptophan is basically in the brain. It goes into the brain, absorbed in the brain, turns into serotonin. And then we have lower levels of anxiety, lower levels of depression. But the absence of serotonin is not the only thing that disappears when we start fasting. We start to get these insulin spikes. So when we eat in the morning, whoop, the spike goes up. And then depending on what we've eaten, it'll either crash and we feel very hungry, very fast, very dizzy, very lightheaded. And with that comes the sense of confusion, and even that can then exacerbate our feelings of anxiety, can make us feel even angrier than we were to start off with. So insulin basically is what fixes our blood sugar. It levels out our blood sugar. We eat foods, and predominantly our bodies work on glucose energy. What does this mean? Every food that we eat contains three things: a protein, a carbohydrate, and a fat in different amounts. So our bodies run normally on energy that comes from carbohydrates, which convert in our body to something called glucose or glycogen. And we burn glucose in our body, and that is what gives us energy. It runs around, insulin unlocks all the cells in our body so that the glucose can get in and it can feed our cells and give us energy. But carbohydrates are just, as I said, one of the three things that feed, that are contained in our food. And not all carbohydrates are made equal. I could eat a carbohydrate, think of a starch basically. So you could have a slice of bread, or you could have something that is also a carbohydrate, which is cauliflower. And the effect on the body is very different. The spike of insulin is a lot less on cauliflower, for example. So that means the faster it spikes, the faster it's going to come down. If I'm having those white flours, those white rices, those white foods, I'm going to spike my insulin very quickly. And if there's nothing in the food that is a complex carbohydrate to allow me to manage my insulin levels, is going to drop. So you find that there are people that suffer tremendously with their diabetes. It kind of goes a little bit out of control, or even become diabetic when they were pre-diabetic because they are not eating the right kind of foods. So food that we eat, if it's high in a carbohydrate, will spike the insulin, which causes a spike in our blood sugar. If we are then eating salty foods, lots and lots of salt, like for example, we all like our savories. If we are eating savories and high insulin producing foods right off the bat, as soon as we break fast, what happens? We've increased our blood sugar and we've increased our blood pressure. So what does that look like really? It looks like a hose pipe that's turned on maximum and your blood is rushing through your body and it's going to hit your organs. And unfortunately, because you've increased your blood pressure, the blood is pushing faster. Because you've increased your insulin, the blood is rushing from your brain down into your digestive system because your stomach is signaling your brain, send the blood so that we can digest all of this food that we are eating. And then unfortunately, we have situations where people end up either with a stroke or a heart attack at the time of Isha or even just after the iftar. So we have to pace ourselves, and that brings us to the next point, and that is that we have to pace ourselves. This fast and then complete feasting, is it really what Ramadan is about? If Ramadan is about self-control, is it really what it's about? And it's hard for us as women because the men are saying, no, they're used to their savories. They want their menu. They want their this, and then they want their that, and then they want their that. And then nobody can read Isha because everybody's exhausted. And, people are just too exhausted to do ibadah. And so it comes back to that thing of in Ramadan, is all we felt is hunger. Is that all we got out of it? How do we pace ourselves? Couple of notes, if you want to take them, is to avoid foods that cause massive insulin spikes. Number one is sugar. Sugar is a huge insulin spike. If we eat those white foods and we eat a lot of them and nothing to balance it out, we're going to get a massive spike again. So try as much as we can to include things like low GI foods and low carbohydrates, which is complex carbohydrates. What am I talking about? Let me break it down for you. We opt for things like chicken and turkey and fish instead of meat. The reason for that is because turkey, chicken, and fish, what do they give us? Tryptophan. Tryptophan becomes serotonin, feel-good hormones, not feeling so angry anymore. When we wake up in the morning and we're having a mutton curry or we're having a lamb curry, we are not getting that happy feeling throughout the day. So try, when we can, we try to introduce the chicken, the turkey, and the fish instead of the red meats. Milk is a very important producer of tryptophan, which gives us feel-good hormones, which helps us to regulate anxiety and depression and all these hangry feelings. Seeds and nuts is another one. Oats is another one. Of the fish family, tuna, salmon, those are the better ones. If you are looking to have a broth or a soup, many people like to have halim. Now, halim is very, very high in carbohydrates, which means you eat that halim, now you're flying. Now you are on this carbohydrate buzz, and suddenly you're going to crash very, very hard. You're going to feel overfull. Your digestive system is going to draw all the blood from the brain. That means you're going to feel dizzy and you get really, really, really tired. So try introducing more of these. Eggs as well are tryptophan producing foods. The other thing is olive oil. Olive oil is an amazing, amazing thing to introduce. So if you have those little side salads, drizzle some olive oil on there. Better yet, drizzle some olive oil with lemon juice, because now not only are you preventing the brain from developing things like Alzheimer's, but you're regulating blood sugar levels, you're preventing these high swings of insulin, and you are actually feeding your brain and your body. Olive oil is one of the best things that you can put in your food. The olive oil with the lemon combination is now helping you with your gallbladder. olive oil and lemon juice together is very healing for gallbladders. There's a whole thing that you can do with olive oil and lemon juice that I've given to some of my clients when they're wanting to do a gallbladder cleanse. So as a menu, you picture it, Sicily 21, no, suhoor. Let's say you could start with a green smoothie or a smoothie of oats, nuts, and milk. You could then have your breakfast cereal. If you haven't had the smoothie, you could have a breakfast cereal with a milk drink, because again, milk is great. The dairy, if you're not happy with the dairy, opt for something like goat's milk. And then your main meal to include, again, the cheeses, the chickens, the turkeys, the tuna, the olive oil, even its raw format. And then, of course, the tryptophan producing vegetables, your broccoli, your cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, spinach. These things, sneak them in there wherever you can with the kids. Kids can have a hard time doing it, but sneak it in. If you're going to make mashed potato, throw some cauliflower into that mashed potato. They won't even know the difference, and it works. So if you reduce these very simple carbs, then we introduce the complex carbs. We are giving ourselves physically and mentally a better way to cope. When it comes to iftar, typically people will break their fast with dates and water. Alhamdulillah, it's a wonderful way. And then they sit down and they have their halim and they have their meal and they have their everything. And by the time you've finished, you kind of, maghrib is gone. You've forgotten to do the maghrib. So a nice tip, just a tip, take it, use it, don't use it, is to have your dates and water and then have a broth. Instead of halim every single day, try this. See the difference it makes to your body. Things like chicken or turkey broth in particular. Have that. If you're going to mix it into your halim, because you have to have halim, then go ahead and mix it into your halim. Okay. Easy to make a chicken or turkey broth. You want the chicken or turkey bones. You want some celery, some onions, some carrots. You want to cook that in the pressure cooker in water until those bones have started to go soft. You strain it and there is your broth. You can keep it in the fridge. You can keep it in the freezer. It'll separate the fat on top and the liquid at the bottom. You want to use that liquid and put it into your halim. Put it into your curries. Put it into your foods that you're making in the evening to help the body to cope. So you've had your dates and water. You've had some broth. And then we go and do our ibadah. Then we return for our main meal. This has given our body a little bit of time to digest, and the blood can start to rush back up to our brain a little bit so that we are conscious to eat some more. And if you can accompany your main meal with something that is a digestive drink. So ladies, my clients that maybe on here know about Boost Juice, which is something that I make, and it is a probiotic. It is a energy drink. It helps you with digesting your food. So if you can't get something like that, or if you want something like that, you can let me know. But you can try kefirated milk. You can try acidophilus milk. You can try kombucha. It's like a little cool drink, basically, these kombucha things. You can get them from the store or you can make your own. So you would have that with your main meal. Then break again. Go and do some ibadah and then return if you're going to have sweetmeats or something sugary. And then this is when I would recommend that you have your savory. So it's kind of back to front, but the reason for it is to help our bodies to cope a lot better with the mental and the physiological issues that we are dealing with. Fasting is a time of regeneration. Why is such a menu important? Why does it support us? Why does it give us? Can anyone tell me, okay, please repeat the broth recipe? Sure. So celery, carrots, and bones. Celery, carrots, bones. Yes, you can add parsley. You can add other things if you want. There's two main ways to make broth. You can either put those all in the pressure cooker and cook them up, and there you've got a broth, or you can go one step further and you can take these bones, you can mix them up. So let's say you've been eating chicken and people have finished eating. Keep the bones. You scrape the bones into the bin. Don't do that. Keep the bones. And then you put them into the pressure cooker with your celery, your carrots, your bones, your onions. If you wanted to add the parsley in, you could, but those are the 4 ones. It's onions, celery, carrots, and the bones. You pressure cook them. If you want to do it otherwise, you can take all of those, put them in a pan, a baking pan, put your olive oil onto that, throw that into the oven, and let it cook in the oven until your onions are soft, your carrots are soft. Now you take it out and now you put it into the pressure cooker. The difference between that is that you're getting a lot more goodness from the bones. The bones are giving you a lot more calcium, giving you more nutrition than they would if you just stick them into a pressure cooker. So what types, can anybody tell me here, what types of energy does the body use? And I'm not talking about energy healing. I'm talking about physical energy, mental energy. What kinds of energy does anybody, can anybody mention one that I've discussed already? I spoke about the body using carbohydrates to turn into, no one. Okay, that's glucose. So glucose is one form of energy, and it comes from carbohydrates. The other form of energy is from fruits, and that is called fructose. Now, fructose is used by the liver for the liver, nowhere else in the body. The body can actually only handle 100 mils of fruit juice in one day. Anything beyond that is stored as fat in our body, and it's stored in the liver, and then we develop a fatty liver. So very important to balance out that we're getting enough of everything. And then ketones is the third form of energy, and it comes from when we fast. When we fast and our body breaks down fat into ketones, we go into what's called a state of ketosis. The minute you don't eat for 10 hours, okay, even a little bit less, 8.5, but 10 is really the landmark for most people. When you don't eat for 10 hours, up to 24 hours, 48 hours, your body goes into a state of ketosis. Now, here's the beauty of it. Look at the way that Allah is, the way that Allah has given us Ramadan. The heart, the brain, and our muscles can only regenerate. The brain and the heart particularly can only regenerate using ketones. So ketones unlocks brain regeneration called neurogenesis, and heart regeneration called cardiac rejuvenation. The muscles then can use carbohydrates and can use ketones, but ketones repair. So when you burn fat, your brain and your heart repair themselves. Your body cannot burn fat as long as there is carbohydrates going on. So if you have a very heavy meal that takes you 16 hours to digest, you never get to that point of rejuvenating the mind, preventing Alzheimer's, preventing cardiac problems, having the cells in our heart that have, maybe if you've had a cardiac problem before, the cells that are healthy when you are fasting during the month of Ramadan for 10 hours and more, and you've not had such a massive meal that it takes you that long to digest, you are able to actually regenerate the heart, regenerate the brain. Look at that. What other belief system out there puts us into that place where we can regenerate our brains and our hearts? And now if we are armed with the information that serotonin is a feel-good hormone and we can produce serotonin by eating specific foods that are tryptophan rich, then we are flying, and our Ramadan can be absolutely amazing. So the first 2 to 4 days that you are fasting, your body is confused. Am I burning glucose? Am I burning fat? What am I doing? A lot of people lose weight in Ramadan, and that is a very good sign, because if you have lost weight during the month of Ramadan, it means your body has been burning fat. It means your brain and your heart has actually been regenerating. If you're picking up weight, then you need to consider, are you eating too many simple carbs, the white flours, the white rices, and all of these things? But there is something else that fasting does. There is something else that Ramadan gives us as a special gift, and that is something called autophagy. And this is what autophagy is. Your body says to your whole body, what isn't working right? Which cells here are old? Some cells are supposed to last our whole life. But when we are in a state of fast, like in Ramadan, those cells that are really old and they're kind of not working at their prime, the body destroys them and creates new ones that function at 100%. So now suddenly we get the skin glowing, we get our bones are feeling healthier, our muscles are feeling healthier. So if we can extend Ramadan into 40 days, excluding, of course, the days that we're not allowed to fast, then even better for us because we get the autophagy, rejuvenation of the body cells. We get the brain getting younger, preventing Alzheimer's, improving our memory. All those brain pathways are suddenly kind of on superfly. How would you possibly feel anxiety or depression then? It starts to actually heal. The physiological side, the physiological reasons for our anxiety and our depression, those start to ease off because our brain is supported. Now let's quickly talk about supplementation in terms of our gut health. You see, if our pH is, if our body is not acidic, if our body is alkaline, so the pH is higher, and if our pH is higher and our gut is functioning correctly, then we cannot have any disease, including cancer cells die off. So fasting, through the use of tryptophan producing foods, lower simple carbohydrates, increased complex carbohydrates, your broccolis, your spinach, your cauliflowers, your Brussels sprouts, all those bittery things that we don't really like, those things, what are they going to do? They're going to heal our gut and they're going to balance our pH. When we're not drinking water, this is essential because water is what helps us, for the most part, to work through, for things to work through our body, for the food to move along through our body. So fiber is like soap, but soap without water cannot work. So we need to have the water, enough water during suhoor and after iftar, so that our body is prepared. Because now we are going to look at our gut health. What do we need for our gut health? If you have checked your levels with the doctor, you can. If you have checked your level on a quantum resonance analysis, you can do that too. Magnesium, you have to look out for in your blood tests or in your resonance analyses. Look out for your magnesium. Magnesium and potassium are essential. Why? Because we're in a state of fast and our kidneys need that support, and potassium will give us that. Magnesium is going to stop those restless legs that happen. Everybody knows about those, especially if you're going through Ramadan and you're going through perimenopause or menopause at the same time. I don't want to be too long, so I'm going to rush it a little bit further, a little bit faster. Milk thistle to support our liver. Now, the liver does not always have enough liquid, enough water in our body to process toxins. Our liver is a filter. So by taking milk thistle, any brand is fine. It can be a tablet, it can be a tincture, it doesn't matter. That milk thistle is going to help the liver itself to regenerate. Now you got a new brain, you got a new heart, you got new muscles, you got a new liver, and you're journaling and you're putting your thoughts down and you're looking at messages that Allah might be sending you through a talk that you heard, through a Quranic reading that you heard. How wonderful is it? And then we want to deal with the breath. And there's a wonderful plant that we can use to deal with the breath, and it's called stevia. That same stevia that you buy in the shops in a powdered format, but we're not going to use the powder. We're actually going to go to the nursery and find a stevia plant, and one little leaf in a cup of boiling water will make a mouthwash. Can be kept in the fridge or outside of the fridge, it doesn't matter. That mouthwash is going to keep bacteria away from our teeth during the time of fast, and is going to help us to not have that breath so strong. Then the other thing is fennel. For gas and bloating, add a little bit of fennel to your food or have a cup of fennel tea. So that is from a physiological perspective, underpinning the mental and emotional health. And then we look at mindfulness. Isn't it amazing, subhanallah, that Allah gives us Ramadan to allow us to be disciplined, to get some sense of self-control back in our lives. And we can pollute that through the fasting and the feasting. But the way around it is to use the knowledge that was shared today to help us to support the body and the mind, mindfulness and journaling. And I hope that helps everybody. Any questions now? I will open up for questions. I try to move along pretty quickly so that we can cover everything. Any questions anyone has, you're welcome to post them on. And I'll hand over to Nadia in the meantime. Okay, so Nadia, over to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah, Sister Rabia, for all the insight regarding health. And it's actually, I hope each of the ladies benefit from today. The main thing, as we have said, and I hope ladies here, is that although we are not alimas, we are here together with your wealth of knowledge to help provide the guidelines for women with regards to planning full steam ahead for one of the most auspicious times in our lives as Muslim women. And yeah, and just one thing, Sister Rabia, if you can just explain if they, with regards to kids, just a question I have, what sort of, because I have a 5-year-old that fasts, she's been fasting since 4, but come 12 o'clock, she gets hungry very quickly. And we normally, I'm not sure if others are similar to us, but we have a banana at and cereal. Is there anything else that we can include to just help her feel fuller for longer? And then the worry of dehydration, because she's still so young. So at night, I usually limit the water intake from 6. So now that's a bit of a challenge for me during the month of Ramadan.
So I'm going to take your question, and then I see there's one over here as well. So with children, as we said, those tryptophan foods are a great resource. So if you're using cereal, my question would be what cereal? So if you avoid things like cornflakes and all these Fruit Loopy things, they're very high in sugar. So what happens? Very high insulin spike, very fast insulin drop, and then the child is hungry very quickly. So what you could do, the banana is a good idea. Throw some nuts in there. Throw some nuts in there and switch that cereal for something like jungle oats, because it stays in the body longer. Sometimes we give little ones that maizena, that corn flour, that also burns up like that. It burns up like that, and then the child is feeling very hungry all the time. In terms of feeling thirsty, something I forgot to mention is electrolytes. I actually tested with a few ladies, and including my own family, doing Ramadan without an electrolyte and doing Ramadan with an electrolyte. It's chalk and cheese, completely different. So that was one of the reasons for promoting the boost juice during the Ramadan stage, during Ramadan time, was because it is an electrolyte. But you can get any electrolyte from the Dischem. You can get a Rehydrate, or Biogen is a nice one, an electrolyte to keep the minerals in the body. So that's a good idea. And then in terms of that cereal, switch it over to something like oats. Make oat and banana pancakes. You know, oat and banana pancakes are great for the kids, and put some dairy on there. So put some cheese on there. It's great for them. It does sound yummy. Yes, oats, and put your banana, put your nuts in there, put your milk in, add some cream even. You know, you want to get the feel-good things in there rather than the sugary stuff. Try to replace the sugar with natural sugars, like blitz the dates. Take your dates and put them in your liquidizer and use that as a syrup, or cook your dates right down in a little bit of water to make your own date syrup. It doesn't have to contain sugar. You could add a little bit of caramel essence, and that can be something that you put over your milk drinks. So we mentioned milk drinks even at iftar. I hope that answers your question. With menopause and fasting. Okay, so for menopause, we want to introduce not just the tryptophan things, but we want to bring in other things that help us to regulate our hormones. From a herb perspective, there is black cohosh, if you don't suffer from any family history of cancer. particularly breast cancer. Black cohosh is great. It's actually also fine temporarily as long as you don't stay on it all the time. Black cohosh, evening primrose, those are great ones to have just to support the hormones. If you don't like the black cohosh, a replacement would be red clover. You can get it in a tablet form, in a tincture form. Those are great. And including foods like, for the menopause, beans, 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 beans. Okay, beans are excellent because beans help us to regulate our hormones. Beans are one of the main things us women should eat, and that is why the fennel tea comes in handy, because beans cause things to happen, and so we need to release all those pent-up gases. So in terms of I just want to go up here because you had another question. It was the cramping legs. Okay, restless cramping legs. Remember I mentioned supplementation with magnesium and potassium during Ramadan, particularly for restless legs, because even people who don't get restless legs normally get restless legs during Ramadan because of the different chemicals being produced in our body. So magnesium helps to support that. And if you find that you're still getting them where you literally can't stop moving your legs, potassium, and you can carry this on after Ramadan as well. A potassium, a nice one, is a chelated potassium, and you can go and any kind of chelated is just the name for it. Potassium, it's the way it's been produced. Any shop out there, a health store will have that, or pharmacy will have that. Any questions? Any further questions here? Dates in the morning as a smoothie with oats and some peanut butter. So the peanut butter, I would replace that with almond butter, because peanuts are a legume. They are actually not a nut. And so you're not going to get the tryptophan released to help you to feel good in the day. So switch to almond butter, and then you've got a golden recipe there. Even throw a little bit of honey in there. That is great. Then you've got another question here. Jazakallah. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Jazakallah for that comment. It's many, many years. We say in Portuguese, muitos anos a virar frangos. That means it's many, many years of turning the chickens. This is many years of experience, just to let you know. This is year 30 of counseling, and much more than that in terms of health and nutrition support. So yeah, heart and brain regeneration. The brain can only regenerate when we sleep. This is why sleep is so important. That's another thing for the menopause. Ladies, sleep, 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 sleep. I did a recipe on one of my TikToks for you can look it up, it's lifecoach.rabia, for a lemon balm or Melissa honey to help you with sleeping and to help you with menopause. That it's really great for anxiety. So it's like, if you're feeling anxious and you're just about to break fast, have your dates, have your water, throw a little bit of that lemon balm honey into it. The recipe is there. You won't have a month to keep it stored. So what you would now need to do is take the lemon balm and the honey precisely as is in the video. So in a jar, whatever, I've explained it there, and maybe Nadia can share the link with you ladies. And you want to take that whole thing and put it into a saucepan and very, very slowly heat it up so that the goodness of the lemon balm or Melissa oozes into the honey. And lemon balm or Melissa is available as a dry herb. It's also available as a fresh herb at various nurseries. You can keep this in your home. They are great. Another great herb for menopause, if you are wanting to delay your menses, that is yarrow. It's called yarrow. The botanical name is Milfolium officinalis. So Milfolium helps to just delay that period a little bit. You can actually, if you think it's going to start now and you want to stop it, then you can take a herb called shepherd's purse. These herbs are all relatively safe, regardless of whether you have heart issues, kidney issues, whatever, used in their correct quantities and not used every single day. So the shepherd's purse, to delay the period with the yarrow, would be once off. When you want your period to come back, then you would take your yarrow. I give this a lot to ladies who are going on Hajj and want to delay it. Quick question over here. I had COVID last year, still struggling with brain fog. joint pain, and many other side effects. Absolutely. I don't know if we'll have time now because I think Zoom only lasts an hour and then kicks us off, but I will try to deal with that. So the brain fog from COVID often comes about as a result of the extra little bits of virus that are in our body, and we need to get rid of them. We need to detoxify them. Fasting is one way, it's going to help you. But in your case, if you've had COVID and you've got the brain fog and the joint pain, I want to encourage you to do one of two things with one plant. The plant is rosemary, the same rosemary you put into your food. I would encourage you to either have that as a tea twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, or to take the tincture and put 10 drops into a glass of water 3 times a day. Because you're fasting, it's only going to be in the morning, in the evening. So it's 15 drops in the morning, 15 drops in the evening in your water. Rosemary is an antiviral, it's an antibacterial, it's an anti-inflammatory. And because it's an antiviral, any little bits of pieces of the virus that are left in your body will exit your body. The second thing that you can do is to take advantage of this Ramadan to do a parasite cleanse. And for that, all you have to do is in your normal water, if you're putting a rosemary tincture in there, you can also put your wormwood tincture in there. It tastes a bit bitter, but it actually does help to get rid of it, because the COVID virus, as I said from the very beginning, people thought I was crazy and eventually realized, oh, maybe she's onto something. COVID virus is very parasitic in nature. Every virus is a parasite of some sort, but COVID especially. So yeah, I have allowed until 1945. Oh, Jazakallah, Nadia, that's wonderful. Asma, you're so right. I started rosemary last month and I see the difference even with my hair growth. Fantastic. I'll give you a secret. Rosemary is one of the things that I put into my hair growth serum, which is one of the products that I make. Rosemary is one of the things fantastic for your hair. In fact, you can take rosemary if you want it for your hair. You can make that tea from rosemary and you can actually wash your head with it. So after your shampoo, after your conditioner, give yourself a rosemary rinse, rosemary water rinse, and let it sit. Obviously remove the leaves because you don't want to be picking things out of your hair all day long. But yeah, strain it and then, wash your hair in it. And it works great. The other benefit of rosemary is, do you know that rosemary was used in ancient days, in old Chinese traditions? Rosemary was used to treat anxiety. So yeah, get that rosemary into your food. Get that rosemary into tea. I make a chai at Ramadan, which has got everything but the kitchen sink inside it. It's like my herbal and chai. Chuck everything in there. There's herbs in there, there's spices in there. Your cinnamon is fantastic. Your cinnamon is going to help to regulate your blood sugar if you are diabetic. So in that morning breakfast, sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon and see how it's different. You will notice the difference the morning you've had some cereal with cinnamon sprinkle and the morning you've had with no cinnamon. Guaranteed, you will say to me, Rabia, chalk and cheese, totally different. Absolutely. And if our body is supported, our mind is supported. Then on the topic of the mind, I want to encourage you not to close yourself off. In Ramadan, we may be journaling, but it doesn't mean that life stops happening and issues stop happening. So be sure that there is someone that you can talk to. And I always say that if us women were better friends to one another, we wouldn't need so many psychologists and life coaches. So keep your circle tight, but find people that you can talk to about things, not to vent and to gripe and to gossip, but as a sounding board to say, hold on, what should I be doing? How should I be repositioning myself? Because Allah knows that women have an ability, for the most part, we tend to have more patience in some ways than men when it comes to physiological hardship like fasting. I think that's a reason why Allah gave women the ability to, bear children, because we are able to take so much more pain and hardship than men. But it doesn't mean to say we have to be alone. So please reach out. Reach out. I'm working right through Ramadan, so still doing counseling, still doing life coaching. If you need that, you don't have to come to me. There are many wonderful people there, very well qualified, that can assist you. If you don't have that close friend that you know is going to give you positive advice, and please do yourself a favor, just avoid the negativity. You don't have to go no contact with narcissists and difficult people in your life during Ramadan. You don't have to go no contact, and sometimes it's not possible, but you can go low contact. And you can practice something called stonewalling. Let me give you a tip here. Stonewalling will save your life if you're dealing with abusive or toxic people, whether that is your sister-in-law or your cousin twice removed or even your husband. And stonewalling basically means you talk about things like the weather. You talk about things that are not going to produce volatile emotions, just to preserve your peace of mind. And then you shift focus and go and do the things that Ramadan teaches you to do. The charity, getting involved in giving of yourself, of your time, if you have any left during Ramadan, just a phone call to the neighbor. How are you doing? Do you need some soup? Can I bring you a plate of something? That sense of community that we build with one another, it's the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful, beautiful thing. We don't use it enough. We don't refer to it enough. And those are the people that become our support networks, isn't it? And we need that support network during this time of Ramadan. You know, instead of giving someone a gift during Ramadan, how about give them a voucher to an hour of babysitting if you are not a mom? Give a mom a voucher for an hour of babysitting to take that off her hands. That too is charity. That too is earning rewards. I read somewhere yesterday that the thing that Allah loves the most, I am not an alima, so please forgive me, my knowledge as a revert is not massive, but I read something that I thought was so beautiful, and that is Allah said that the most beautiful thing to his eyes is not the money we pay or giving of alms or things. No, it's when we uplift and show love to another Muslim. That is the most beautiful thing. And I just want to wish everyone here the most amazing, spiritually rewarding, physiologically reinvigorating time in this Ramadan, inshallah. May you be blessed, and please remember me in your du'as, and I will remember you. May Allah bless each of you. And Nadia, jazakallah so much for